Sand, tombs, gods, sand, nomads, void monsters, and more sand. Welcome to Shurima. Hello summoners and welcome. So I posted a poll recently with a question of what you guys would want to see from another MMO video, and the consensus was clear for another region video. And I think the region with the most potential in all of Runeterra is Shurima. Now I know when you think of Shurima, you probably think of the Ascended and the Sun Disk and think it's a pretty one-note story. But there's actually much more to this region that Riot rarely seems to talk about. So let's explore Shurima and the potential it has for adventures in the MMO. The first thing I want to talk about is that Shurima, much like Ionia, is more a continent than a single region. Ever since the fall of the Empire after Azir's death, the desert has fractured again into disparate nations and cultures. Now first, we can talk about the Shuriman Empire itself. With Azir's resurrection, the Empire is reforming under his guidance. Several noteworthy locations fall under Azir's rule, such as the restored Sundisk capital, the markets of Merrimark, and the port city of Nashame, which even has its own Sundisk replica. There's also Vakora, which in Legends of Runeterra is shown to be a lush river city where Akshan and his heist crew operate, pulling off jobs against corrupt officials. Then there's also the northern coastal cities of Shurima, such as Tereshni and Belzun, where Noxus has gained significant foothold on the continent. Shurimans in these cities actually have relative peace with the Noxians, as the cities voluntarily submitted to Noxian rule for benefits of trade and protection from raiders. And then we have the other nations such as Cassante's home of Nazuma, which is fiercely protective of its independence and largely staying out of Azir and Xerath's ongoing conflict. The nation also has monster hunters who battle the creatures created by the Ascended in their war. Out in the dunes themselves, there's even more diversity, with several factions of raiders, marauders, scavengers, and nomads. Talaya's tribe shows one variety of nomadic herders, but there are also bandits and raiders that live out in the sands, including the Shakal, raiders who use customary polearms to vault at victims. I can tell you now, those things are going to be a pain to fight. And then there are the Shuriman Marauders, who prowl the dunes and often camouflage with the sands to strike unsuspecting travelers. Again, probably going to be a pain to fight. Some Marauders have also allied with Renekton and serve as his followers and foot soldiers. And also, they're sometimes cannibals. Sometimes. Then we have the Dorman Riders. Now, I love this personally. The Riders live atop massive creatures called Dormun, and even build cities on their backs connected by complex rope systems. The Riders are featured in the Rise comic, The Burning Lands, and traveling with the Riders would be such a cool experience in Shurima. Also worth mentioning are the Kilash, which have their territory along the border with Ishtal's jungles. These are Rengar's tribe of Lion Vastaya, and while not super prevalent in the lore, they are mentioned as being in Shurima. And there are a couple of other cool places that I wanted to talk about. There is of course the void-consumed nation of Acathia, now a stretch of blighted desert haunted by void abominations. Then there is the City of Gardens. The lore says it was once a thriving city that was destroyed during the Rune Wars. Now it's nothing more than a leveled ruin, although I still think it would be a pretty cool place to explore. I also want to mention the Zoantha Cascade, which is a series of sandfalls where Shurimans often tossed away objects of value as sacrifices to the Ascended, making the location a target for looters in the modern age. And the last place I want to bring up is the Valley of Song. This one is just such a cool place and is probably my favorite location in Shurima visually. The location is known for the disorienting whistling sounds made by the winds blowing through it, which would already add such a cool atmosphere. And it's also an ambush site for marauders, who are sometimes cannibals. And that's all the stuff I wanted to bring up in terms of Shurima's cultures and geography. But now, what could Riot do with all of this? Well, as I said in the beginning of this video, Shurima actually may have some of the most potential for diversity out of all of the regions. And here's a few ideas of what Riot could pull off. Now, of course, the main storyline in Shurima is likely going to revolve around Azir and the return of his empire. There are a lot of sub-threads woven into this story already, such as Azir wanting Sivir to take her rightful place as his heir, Azir's own ongoing conflict with Xerath, characters like Talaya already wanting Azir dead again, and Nasus wanting to guide the newly returned emperor. But we'll get back to him later. There's a lot to be done there, and it could give Azir a great character arc where he either repeats Shrima's mistakes and leads to another fall or Age of Tyranny, or even learns from the past and forges something new and lasting. But of course, either way, it'll probably take us several quest lines and maybe a few expansions to get there. There's also the potential of a Shurima-Noxus war. Say Azir wants to take back those lands Noxus has claimed. This could easily lead to a clash of empires, with players having to pick a side in a region-defining conflict. Then there is Nasus. Now in Legends of Runeterra, Nasus is given a really interesting story. He wants to save the Bakai. And it's totally okay if you don't know about the Bakai. They are tragically not talked about much, but they are one of my favorite parts of Shuriman lore. The Bakai were once mortals presented to the Sun Disk, but they didn't fully ascend. Their ascension was interrupted, or they were unworthy, and while they did achieve their new godlike form, they didn't receive the power they should have, and many were driven mad like Renekton was. Now in Legends of Runeterra, Nasus is actively trying to find a way to save the Bakai and Renekton, restoring them from their crazed states. And if you look at the cards, he seems to succeed. And I'll even read you the flavor text to this card so you can see for yourself. Nasus emerged from the sarcophagus, his mind clear and his wounds fully healed. He scribbled a few notes and peered at the sarcophagi hanging high above, pondering the mental state of the beastly aberrations resting within. Time would tell if this magic could bring the Bakai back from their insanity, a magic the other Ascended had once protested. But they were gone now, and Renekton and his madness were not. Nasus scribbled a few more words, hoping he had finally found a way to save his brother. So we could see a potential payoff to the Nasus and Renekton story here. And personally, I would love to see this continue with new lore, or potentially even a Bakai champion in League. The Bakai would also be a great option for a playable race in the MMO, acting as a sort of balance-friendly version of the Ascended. Also, Cassante's lore, oddly enough one of the only places where the Bakai are actually mentioned, tells us that Xerath is also subjecting actual animals to ascensions, resulting in chimeric monsters. Cassante's entire bio is actually about him trying to fight one, if you want to go check that out. We also should touch on the Void and Acathia. On one hand, there could easily be storylines about us fighting back the Void whenever monsters might emerge from it. And then the potential of perhaps returning to Acathia and aiding Zilean in his attempts to restore the nation through time manipulation. Who knows? If Riot wants, maybe they'll actually bring Acathia back. Just saying, us actually getting to join Zilean and fight through time to restore a lost realm would be an epic storyline that would bring a great resolution to his arc. And potentially adding a new region to Runeterra with the potential for new champions. I'm just saying. So now let's touch on what kind of things we'll be getting up to in Shurima besides quests. Personally, I always love games with world events and other activities besides just basic campaigns and PvP. So let's see what Shurima could give us in that department. First up, we have what will probably be the best source of loot in Shurima: tomb raiding. Yes, we will all likely get to channel our inner Lara Croft and delve into ancient Shuriman tombs as a sort of dungeon activity, where we could brave all kinds of traps, challenges, and maybe even tomb guardians for some great loot. Also, if Riot wanted to lean further into Nezuma, we could potentially see monster hunts where we go after Xerath's chimeras as group activities. Kinda like what I suggested for Bilgewater back in that video. We could also face roaming void monsters as random encounters, as well as marauders, who are sometimes cannibals. And then there is the potential for raids. My guesses are we could have a raid on a stronghold of Xerath's followers, fighting his acolytes, or maybe the Ascended Magus himself. Probably called something like Acolyte's End if we're fighting an Acolyte Lieutenant. Or maybe something like Fall of the Magus or the Ruinous Spire if we're fighting Xerath himself. Another raid possibility could see us diving into a Xersai hive, ultimately fighting Rek'Sai herself at the heart of the nest. We'd probably have a really cool final encounter with her burrowing around us and us having to dodge those attacks. Even better if it's in a crumbling Acathia ruin. And those are just some ideas I have for what we could see from Shurima in the MMO. Let me know what you think of these suggestions, and if you have your own, I'd love to read them. And if we see all this in the MMO, what adventures would you get to in Shurima? And should Bakai be playable? Also, would you side with Shurima or Noxus in a region war? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, then please be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more MMO videos. And until next time, I'll see you out on the Summoner's Rift.